If you're planning a trip to Colombia, I'm going to give you my best suggestions for a 10-day trip that I would personally take my friends and family on. I've been traveling back and forth to Colombia since 2021, and these are some of my top suggestions. To start out, I'm going to assume everybody's going to start in Medellín because that's the international hotspot and there's a lot of direct flights from the USA and Europe. So with that said, let's jump directly into it. On the first day, this might come as a surprise, but I really recommend taking things easy. It's stressful enough to deal with unexpected delays, baggage, getting to a new city and a new country. So try not to have too much planned for your first day because you never quite know how things are going to go. But once you finally do arrive to the airport of Medellín, it's about a 45-minute drive outside of the city in the mountains of Rio Negro. So in order to get down to Medellín, you have three main options. You can take a taxi, which are numerous all there around the airport. You can take an Uber if you have cell service, which is probably the most convenient and the easiest. Or you can take the bus, which is about 14,000 pesos, but it's going to drop you off in the neighborhood of San Diego. But from there, you can find another taxi, an Uber, or you can take the metro if you're willing to walk a little bit. If it's your first time going to Medellín, I recommend one of these three neighborhoods to stay in. Poblado, which is where most of the tourists will stay, and it's more of the uppity part of the neighborhood. It's really nice and modern, and it has all the amenities that you want if you're coming from Western countries. Or Envigado, which is just south of Poblado. I really like it. It's a little more peaceful, a little more quiet. You won't find as many tourists there, a little more of a local vibe, but it's really safe, really neat, and there's lots to check out there too. And lastly, Laureles. It's a perfect mix of tourists and locals. It's a little bit on the other side of the city from Poblado and Envigado, but it's really easily connected through metro or taxi. Now, once you finally make it to your Airbnb, hostel, or hotel, I'd recommend going to check out the neighborhood that you're staying in. So if you're staying in Poblado, I have two great recommendations for rooftop bars, Envy Rooftop and La Deriva. And of course, you could always check out Parque Lleras, and anywhere near Provenza, you'll be sure to find a party there. If you're staying in Envigado, I'd recommend checking out Viva Centro Comercial. There's a bunch of restaurants on the top level there and beautiful views of the city as well. There's also a great expat bar there, which I highly recommend if you're into sporting events because they usually have international teams playing there, which is called Barrio Sur Cafe Bar. Or if you're feeling a little more adventurous, you could hop on the metro, which is right in front of Viva Centro Comercial, up to Mercado del Rio, which is a great area to explore different cuisines. And if you're staying in Laureles, I recommend anywhere along Primero Parque, Segundo Parque, and Calle 70. If you're looking for the most people, I'd recommend Provenza or Calle 70 because they're always going to be full of people and you can find a party any night of the week there. But try not to get too carried away on your first night because there's still so much to do and so much to see. On the second day, I recommend checking out the infamous Comuna 13. It used to be one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in Medellín, but has since been completely transformed. You can always find restaurants, bars, live music, dancing, graffiti art, and beautiful views of the city. And in my opinion, it's worth it to pay a guide to take you around Comuna 13 for a number of reasons. One, because it's jam-packed full of history, and you're gonna wanna learn some of that. Two, because there's a lot of vendors there, and if you have a guide, they can help you navigate the tourist traps. Also, keep in mind that this place is extremely popular, especially on the weekends or for any sort of holiday. You'll be like a sardine in there. There is a ton of people. So just plan ahead and make sure you know when you're going, so that way you could get the most out of your experience at Comuna 13. After you finish checking out Comuna 13, I highly recommend checking out Parque Explora. You can learn about local fish, reptiles, animals, and there's several different interactive museums there. Amazing, and you could literally spend several hours there. I think you need at least 3 hours to see and explore everything once you're there, so plan accordingly. So once you finish up at Comuna 13 and Parque Explora, you'll probably have most of the evening free at that point. And I recommend checking out a different neighborhood. So if you're in Poblado, go check out Laureles. Laureles, go check out Envigado. Envigado, go check out Poblado. However you want to do it, just make sure to get out and explore because there's so much to see and do in Medellín. Again, just don't get too carried away because the next day, I'd recommend heading out of town for a day trip to Guatapé. Now there's a few different ways to get to Guatapé. You could take the bus, which is going to be the cheapest, but it's probably going to take the longest, or you could take a taxi or an Uber. But do try to plan to leave early to Guatapé so that way you can get the most out of the day once you're there. You can find places to rent jet skis, paddle boards, they do helicopter tours, you could cruise around in tuk-tuks. They have several different party buses going on, or you could even rent your own boat, which is what me and a few friends ended up doing. And of course, there's the main attraction in Guatapé, La Piedra. Depending on how busy it is, it'll probably take you 30 to 45 minutes to climb all the stairs. The views are spectacular from here, and you could probably spend a good 30 minutes to an hour up there. There's a few different restaurants and bars to go check out, and I think they have a few shops too. And once you finally finish up from there, you have to check out the little pueblo of Guatapé. It's really beautiful and vibrant, and you're not going to want to miss it. While you could easily spend a full weekend in Guatapé, I recommend heading back to Medellín because there's still so much to see and do. Now, I personally lived in Medellín, and I don't get tired of the city. I can always go out somewhere new and explore it. But for this trip, it'll be the last day here, so make the most of it. Now, if you haven't already seen or tried some of the local food, I highly recommend you do it, especially here in Medellín. One dish that they're really well known for is bandeja paisa. And this is a very filling dish, so maybe split it with somebody or get it when you're hungry because it'll fill you up. Another great dish is sancocho, which is a really popular Colombian soup. And of course, you can find arepas on every single corner in Colombia. There's also tons of great street food. My personal favorites are chuzo de pollo, empanadas, and buñuelos stuffed with queso. If you're a beer person like me, I was surprised to learn Colombia has a really good brewery called BBC, which is all over the country, and you can find several in Medellín. There's also domestic beers like Águila and Poker, which are two of my favorites. And if you like lime and salt in your beer, I highly recommend getting it michelada style. And if you've gone out and experienced nightlife, I'm assuming you've probably already seen the little bottle of aguardiente. They sell 3 different flavors of it. I personally like the one with no sugar. Now, for the last day in Medellín, you just won't have time to see and do everything that you want to. But a few of my top recommendations are going to be Plaza Botero, Jardín Botánico, Parque Arví, Museo Castillo, and Pueblito Paisa. If you do end up going to check out Plaza Botero, just make sure you do it early on. After sunset, that area in El Centro could be a little more on the sketch side. Not to scare you, but it's the reality of it. So just make sure if you do check it out, do it before sunset. And to finish off the last night of Medellín, you must check out a mirador. There's several great ones, but 3 of my personal favorites are Os Mirador, La Octava Maravilla, and Mirador al Cielo, Medellín. Now that we've seen Medellín, get your bags packed and ready to go because we're going to check out, in my opinion, the most beautiful region of Colombia, Eje Cafetero, also known as the coffee region. So I recommend staying in this region of Colombia for at least 3 days. It's so beautiful, you're not going to want to leave, believe me. And the first stop I'd recommend is Manizales. In order to get to Manizales, you have a few different options. 2 of the most common are taking a bus, which could take up to 6 to 8 hours, depending on if there's construction or not, and you never really know in Colombia what's going on. So yeah, just plan for that if you do take the bus. Or you could take a flight. There's several different airlines in Colombia which offer flights from Medellín. I believe LATAM, Avianca, and JetSmart are 3 of the main ones. And they usually have a layover in Bogota, so the flight could end up taking about 4 to 5 hours. If it wasn't for the layover, it would be quick, but do keep in mind that there's probably going to be a layover. Now, if you've never stayed in a finca before, this is a must do, especially in this region. There's a finca in Morro Gacho, which I highly recommend. It literally feels straight out of the Disney movie Encanto. You can plan on waking up to a spectacular sunrise, cows grazing, birds chirping, and 2 adorable golden retrievers that live on the property. While in Manizales, you can check out Villa Maria, which is accessible by cable car. And you can check out the beautiful Cathedral of Basilica. And like I said, this is the coffee region of Colombia, so of course they offer coffee tours here. One of the most recommended is Hacienda Venecia. I personally haven't done the tour, but I've heard a lot of great things about it. I've had friends who went, and I've seen videos online. It looks absolutely amazing. So if you're into coffee and want to know how it grows, this is the spot to do it. Also, while you're in this region, a highlight must be checking out the hot springs here. This region is known for having amazing hot springs. Termales Santa Rosa de Cabal is the most well known in the area, so expect it to be crowded, but still gorgeous. Termales Otoño is also a great option, and is more secluded, and on the day we went, we had it all to ourselves. You can also book a hotel room and stay overnight. And if there's one place you cannot skip out on or change your plans for the entire trip, it is Salento. This gorgeous little pueblo is the base of one of the most Instagrammable places in the entire country, Valle de Cocora. And a fun fact, it has the tallest palm trees in the world. The pueblo of Solento feels so magical, and there's a ton of great restaurants, bars, and stores to check out. This is also where I learned how to play tejo, which is a traditional Colombian game that involves throwing a stone to try to hit a bag full of gunpowder, so that way it explodes. And if that doesn't sound good enough, I'm pretty sure it's mandatory to drink while you're playing. So after checking out the coffee region for a few days, the 8th day will pretty much be a full travel day of getting to the Caribbean coast of Colombia. In order to get there, you'll have to get to the city of Pereira, which is also in the coffee region. From there, you could catch a flight to Santa Marta. But again, expect the layover probably in Bogota in order to get to Santa Marta. And once you finally make it to Santa Marta, don't get too comfortable just yet, because you're going to want to hop in a bus and head down the coast till you get to Palomino. Me and my friends stayed at Dreamer Hostel in Palomino, and it was just steps away from the ocean. And be sure to get up early, because sunrise here is unlike anywhere else I've ever seen. While in the region, you can find activities like surfing, paddleboarding, and tubing down the river. And for the final day of the trip, go to Rio Hostel in Buritaca. Talk about walking into Jurassic Park. It literally felt prehistoric there. Buritaca is also known as the place where the river meets the ocean. Now, here's some pro tips to help you plan your trip to Colombia. Medellín, first off, is known as the city of eternal spring. Mid-70s during the day, mid-60s at night, and it's always consistently between that throughout the year. The only difference is you're going to have rainy season and non-rainy season. So just make sure to bring a rain jacket. And once you get to the coffee region, the temperature can fluctuate a little more. Depending on where you go, temperatures could reach mid to low 80s during the days. And at nighttime, it could actually drop down a little bit more to 50s. So make sure you bring some sort of a hoodie and sweatpants for the coffee region. And the coast, it is hot and tropical. So you're gonna wanna bring your beach gear. But I recommend bringing long sleeves and something to cover your entire body, because the mosquitoes there are absolutely no joke, and you will get shredded if you do not cover up or have bug spray. Colombians have a basic saying, no dar papaya, which means don't give people a reason to rob you. Colombia is not the place to show off how much money you have. If you want to do that, go to Miami. Now, I've flown my drone and vlogged all over Colombia with no problems, but I'm obviously not going to go down a sketchy street to do that. Use your common sense. It's the same all over the world. And gentlemen, do not use Tinder here, especially in Medellín, and always keep an eye on your drinks. It doesn't matter if it's just water, juice, or alcohol. Be aware, Colombians love music and are not afraid to blast it at all hours of the day. There's also a lot of noise from traffic. For 10 days in Colombia, you can expect to spend as little as $1,000 up to $2,000, depending on how you want to live, where you want to stay, how you want to eat, and the activities that you want to do. I hope you were able to get some sense of what to do in Colombia with this video. I know that there's so much more to see and do in Colombia that I barely even scratched the surface with this video. If you want to see hidden gems that I found while I was living in Colombia, click right there and I'll share some of my favorite spots that I went to while I was living there.